Hello, my fellow Total War Warhammer gamers. I'm Redbeard, and welcome to my start position speculation video. I've dived deep into lore to find the best positions, and I put in thousands and thousands of hours playing the game. With this knowledge, whilst also keeping in mind future DLC and FLC positions, I now show my original vision for positions. Before the official map was released, I had started this video, not thinking CA's turnaround on this info would be coming this soon. I'm both happy to find out next week and upset because I'm now crunching to finish this video. I originally and will throughout use this topographical map instead of the leaked map because I love topographical maps and I felt it would give a better sense of where exactly lords would be and why. Do not fret though, because I have reevaluated and repinned the banners on the official map, which if you want to see that, you can just scroll to the end of the video. But if you want a detailed explanation of where everyone could or should go, including the 4 new Chaos Champions in the DLC pack, then buckle up for safety, biznatch. Alright? This is not going to be a DLC speculation video entirely, but I think it is important to briefly overview where necessary. In this video, I will go race by race, describing every start position for every lord. Some will stay put, some may have several different options from what I've researched from lore and what makes sense from a gameplay perspective. So without further ado, let's dive in. For the Empire. Karl Franz is right where he should be in Altdorf, the capital of the Empire. I added in Middenland just because it is confirmed he is coming eventually, and by he, of course, I mean Boris Todbringer, leading the cult of Ulrich, with perhaps the aid of the current High Priest of Ulrich, Emil Valgir, maybe as a legendary hero, or pseudo-legendary lord for recruitment or something. For the Golden Order, Gelt has a very important transition to make out of the Empire and into Astalia, in my opinion. This would be a nice fan service for the memes, but more than that leaves room for other lords to start around the area, namely Scrag if you wanted to keep in the Empire, which I don't. Village lawfully sieges Averheim, and is known for teleporting around, so he could start around Faldorf, potentially. The real reason is for future Empire content. Marius Lightdorf would start in Averland, and Elspeth von Draken in Nuln, lawfully, and their fan favorite picks. My favorite picks probably as well. Jubal Falk also starts in Nuln. If they add in Imperial Engineers, but I see him more as a legendary hero for Elspeth or Gelt. So why Astalia? Other than to be able to say his quote, "Welcome to Astalia, gentlemen," upon entering a campaign, lawfully he was born in the border princedom, and would later travel to study in Araby, Tilia, and Astalia in the southern realms. The lore also is unsure of the truth of this origin, but it is known he first arrived to the Empire in Marienburg aboard a Tilian vessel. I suppose another reason could be closer to Ulthuan, where he could study magic. I feel this is a very good move for him. Now for Volkmar, the Grim, we know he is getting his own faction and starting position. Huzzah! I've given him the secessionist banner since he's literally seceding from Reichland. There are 4 possible positions currently I feel might fit after making this video, after the official map release, there potentially is more like 5. Anyways, firstly, being the Eastern Empire. We currently have a Western Imperial start with Karl Franz and a Southern with Gelt, though as I said, I feel that should change for Elspeth or Marius. we are going to get a northern imperial start in Middenland with Todbringer. So that leaves only the east open for Empire Lords with an imperial start. I believe the characters and elector counts of the east, namely Wolfram Hertwig of Ostermark or the von Rakoffs of Ostland, are unlikely to be in total war, which is why I think Volkmar could go here instead. Furthermore, it puts him next to Kislev and closer to Chaos. In the game, he has buffs for fighting the undead, which would be next door in the south, but lorefully he is much more about fighting Chaos than the undead. Now, there's several points there that I need to get to, but first, why this position might not work. He's surrounded by possibly Draika, unless she moves, but definitely Katerin, Ungrim, and the von Karsteins. So unless Draika moves, this position won't work. Additionally, writing after the official map drop, I've decided maybe taking Oxiodo's position is best for Volkmar, close to Chaos, and an easy enough sail back to the Empire as well. Now, for my favorite position for Volkmar, we have the Northern Darklands, next to Boris Ursus. As I said, Volkmar is all about fighting Chaos, and so is Boris. So this is an awesome spot for them to buddy up and do that, being in Chaos Dwarf territory and bordering the Northern Chaos Wastes, without being too far from their homelands, which neither of them want to be far from, as the protectors they are. There are also Greenskins, Ogres, and Skaven to fight around here as well, and assumedly Neferata and the Silver Pinnacle if we want to hang on to some of that fighting the undead stuff. Speaking of fighting the undead, we go to our next image in the south. Sudenburg is a fan-favorite Empire position, with no current legendary lord, and would be an excellent place for Volkmar if they wanted him to fight the undead, though I would rather see him fighting Chaos like in lore. This leads us to his last possible location in the southern Chaos Waste, where he could be sent on a mission by the Emperor to fight Chaos. The problem with these two positions, though, is the distance from the Empire. Volkmar is a staunch protector of the Empire, rooting out Chaos within its borders, so it would be strange for him to completely abandon it halfway across the world. Lastly, Marcus is perfect where he is, at the Temple of Kara on a hunting expedition for the Empire on the northern coasts of Lustria. For the Dawi, only have one major move needed, and that's Grombrindal, Thorgrim being the High King in Karakakaraz, Belagar being at Karak-Izor, near enough to Karakay Peaks, but far enough from the Silver Road, and Ungrim being at Karak-Kadrin. From both a lore and gameplay, these stances, they don't make sense to move. Grombrindal, and I think many share this opinion, should start in Nagarond for several major reasons, the most obvious being his rivalry with Malekith. In lore, they are arch-nemesis. Then there are three reasons in one. High Dark and Wood Elves would surround you here, and all would likely declare war on you. Currently, Belagar is the closest to having a war of vengeance, aka the War of the Beard, in a campaign. Here, you'd be within reach of the Sisters of Twilight, Marathi, and Malekith, and after dispatching at least one of the first two, would be, and you'd be in reach of Ulthuan. Any other start position would be a massive disappointment to the fans. Lastly, there is Thoric, whose start position is the most fluid, due to his faction being an expedition already. It's not like he's going to start in his loreful position of Karak-Azul, too close to other dwarf start positions, and Khazad-dûr is the rightful ruler there, even if I don't expect to see him in-game, as I would rather see an engineer character like Grim Berluxon, or a sub-race faction like Thorgard Crumson and, whatever it's called, the Norse dwarves. Krukadrak. More to the topic of Thoric's start, though. His current start in Karak Zorn in the Southlands is far and unique enough from the other dwarves, whilst also being in reach of Karak Azul. There isn't necessarily a need of change. If he were to move, it would most likely be to the spine of Sotek, like his Vortex start, or to the Mountains of Morn in Karak Azorn. But these places could be filled in future content by Josef Bugman, or again, for Grim Burlixon. For the vampire counts, they are the worst offenders when it comes to starting positions. Currently, there are 5 legendary lords in only 3 positions, being Manfred and Gorst in Sylvania, Isabella and Vlad in Swartzhafen, and Kemmler in Castle Drachenfels. But it feels more like 2.5, considering they are direct neighbors. By they, I mean Manfred and the von Karsteins. I do really hope they get a race rework and future content, like one Strigoi legendary lord, either being Usharan in Morkane, Borag Bloody Tooth in the Tower of Vorag, or what makes the most sense, lorefully, Gashnag in the Border Princes. For me, a Strigoi legendary lord is the most important missing character because I want to do a more bestial run with some human variants in the Strigony as well. I also think we will see Nafarada in the Silver Pinnacle and Nagash and Nagashazar, but hopefully in a Legions of Nagash race similar to the Demons of Chaos. Abarash is a fan favorite and could start in the Bloodkeep with Walakarkan. Perhaps. But with the Red Duke more or less confirmed eventually in Musaling, this may be unlikely as they both check the Blood Dragon box. There are also a lot of Necroc Brotherhood characters like Dieter Helsschnitt, Wusaran, Melchior the Ancient, and Zacharias the Everliving that have lore around Ostland in the Forest of Shadows. But I think they are unlikely to become because Manfred kind of already checks the Necroc box. And that area of the old world is going to be pretty crowded as is. This video is not for DLC speculation so much, but I felt the quick overview was important when deciding locations for the current old legendary lords, since the vampires have a lot to do here. Now, I've removed the DLC FLC speculation in this image, so we can just talk about current lords. It is popular opinion that the von Karsteins be moved over next door to Castle Drachenhof and oust the usurper Manfred. Vlad is the rightful ruler of Sylvania, and Isabella and Vlad should not be separated. In hindsight, she should have been a legendary hero, but it is what it is. Manfred has lore connecting him to Nehekara, so I think down near Bagar, where the Necroc Brotherhood is currently, would be perfect and quite unique. If they didn't want to send him that far, they could start him perhaps in the Border Princes, or Morkane, depending who the Strigoi legendary lord is, Usharan Gashnag or Varag, respectively. I say this because I really want that Strigoi lord. Please, CA. Anyways, the most ambiguous move will be Helman Gorst, the least played lord in the game. I have given him the Templehof banner, since lorefully, that is where he's from. But he is also known as a wanderer. So, my thoughts are he took a trip down the Silk Road, eastward bound. From there, he could have wound up in the Mountains of Morn, close to Cathay, but I think he would have traveled south along the River Route and around the Demon Stump in the Darklands and wound up at the Flayed Rock near the Haunted Forest. Not only would the Flayed Rock be a really unique start, but there is lore to back a vampire count start here. It pits him between a lot of unique enemies like Chaos Dwarves, Ogres, Lizardmen, and possibly Dogs of War, as well as in Koresh, because, come on, they're coming, right? At some point. And I think just having this really unique start will actually make him a viable choice. I would play him if he started here. Which I don't think I've ever really played him. So, Lastly, to Britonia in the Grey Mountains, we know the Red Duke will come to Mussolini eventually, and Heinrich is perfect where he is at Castle Drachenfels in the Grey Mountains. The Greenskins are in the best place with starting positions of the 4 original races of Game 1, due mostly to all having unique positions. That being said, when you consider lore and future content, there could also be quite a few moves. The only lord I think absolutely should stay where he is would be Grom, the Paunch, a position in Britonia within reach of the Empire, and Ulthuan, where he lawfully took his Wa through, is great. Again, this is not a DLC speculation video, but I think it is important to consider these things. If we ever saw Gorbad Ironclaw, his lawful start would be an Iron Rock, so freeing Black Crag up would be good for him. If we see Tinnet Four Eyes, the forest goblin who rides an Ragnarok spider, his lawful start is the Black Pit in the Empire, so moving Skarsnik eastward would help, but Tinnet could also start at Mount Arachnos, in which case Thoric from the Dwarves would have to move. I also could see Tinnet starting over near Lustria. It's the whole forest goblin feel. There's a mod called We Special that has a made-up lord named Grak Beast Basha. He might have lore, I can't remember. But that start position, I when I played it, was really quite fun, so that's why I mention it. Besides that, Gatilla the Hunter of the Drippin' Fangs could add a kind of a sharpshooter Marcus Wolfhard Lithanar type lord to the Greenskins, and he could start near the Wolflands at Mount Greyhag as well. Now, to just the current lords, all lords are not necessarily in their lore positions. Wurzag in lore starts in the Southlands, wandering jungles, and encounters lizard temple cities. Though I don't hate his current position, and he does eventually get to the Badlands in lore and raise up idols, I think a Southlands position would be much more interesting. Especially as the southern tip of Lustria is going to be rather vacant. Grimgor's loreful position is in Red Eye Mountain, where Azag is currently, while Azag starts his Wa out of Troll Country after he is driven underground by a Chaos Warband, where he finds the Crown of Sorcery. This would still give us a position between the Empire and the Darklands, whilst putting more pressure on Kislev and also allow us to fight Norska and Chaos earlier. Lastly, we have Skarsnik, whose current position I currently loathe, being right on top of Grom and Belegar, and due to his mechanics is encouraged not to fight the neighboring Empire right away. I think the Karak 8 Peaks mechanics should get a whole rework between Skarsnik, Belegar, and Queek, which perhaps I will make a video in the future on that. For this video, though, it is just important to say that moving him east closer to Karak 8 Peaks makes the most sense. Then we could have kind of a trifecta feel, Belegar coming from the northwest, Queek from the south, and Skarsnik from the northeast. If we don't see Gorbad, and Grimgor moves up to Red Eye Mountain, anywhere for Skarsnik in the Death Pass or Wolflands makes sense to me. In Black Crag lore, Squigs helped win the siege here, making it more friendly for Skarsnik to take Grimgor's position there. It would also give him an easier jump on the race for Karak 8 Peaks than Belegar and Queek, which I feel he needs and is, loreful. The worst offender for the DLC races of Game 1 has 3 legendary lords and 1 start position. I hope that Sigvald is folded into the Slaanesh roster and out of the Warriors of Chaos, but for now I will include him in this portion of the video. I will also include discussion for positions for possible DLC and FLC Warriors of Chaos Lords that may or may not come in or with the 4 Champions DLC pack. The easiest of the two positions to speculate is Archaon and Kolek. In lore, Archaon gathers his forces in the inevitable fortress deep in the northern Chaos Wastes. Being that the Northern Waste province in the official IE map is the only landlocked Chaos Waste province, I think this may be the best position for him. As for Kolek, his lore has him attacking Prague, so I think keeping him in the current Warriors of Chaos position is best. As for Sigvald, who again hopefully will no longer be a Warriors of Chaos Lord come the rework, is from the north, but has a hatred for High Elves, since we know Nakari is being moved to Althwan. Putting Sigvald in his position in the Palace of Princes in the Shardlands makes the most sense to me. Lastly, if Sigvald is race swapped, that would leave an opening in the DLC for either a third Slaanesh character, or what I would prefer, a new Warriors of Chaos Legendary Lord. So let's dip into that, shall we? There are many named Chaos characters in lore, but as for potential Warriors of Chaos Lords, my top picks are Lord Mortkin, the Black Reaver, with Skullix the Great as a legendary hero, and he would start in Norska somewhere. Though this position is very close to Archaon and Kolek, which makes my next pick to be a more suitable option, considering also that Lord Mortkin could be a Norskin Lord, in the Norskin race as well. Next, we could have the Herald Hammerstorn, with Mordrek the Damned as a legendary hero. So, before Karl Franz, way back when Warhammer started in the first edition, Harold Hammerstorn was the only character with a Warhammer, so he's kind of the true Warhammer character in a sense, even though he's not a particularly fan favorite, I don't think, but I don't think many people know about him. And he kind of works under Archaon in the end times. But nonetheless, he is the only suitable option, I believe, for the Warriors of Chaos for the Southern Chaos Wastes as a position, due to the fact he is known as the Bane of the Undead. From here, he could launch towards the coasts of Lustria or Nehekar to fight the undead, especially with all the new undead characters that could and should be coming in Game 3. What about Crom the Conqueror, you might ask? Well, I have an idea for him as the undivided lieutenant of Archaon in lore, a mechanic I might plan in detail in a future video. To summarize, though, it involves a new mechanic for Archaon in which you complete a quest for each god, and then for Undivided, and receive pseudo-legendary lords, similar in a way to the Greenskins technology pseudo-lords of the Vampire Coasts. These pseudo-legendary lords for Archaon would be Vardek Krom, the Conqueror for Undivided, Styrkar of the Swartsvinjar for Slaanesh, Fator the Fainted for Nurgle, Hargroth the Blooded for Khorne, and Melik the Changer for Zinch. This could work like Marcus Wolfhart's quests, where he does missions and gets his legendary heroes. Same kind of thing. Anyways, back to the meat and potatoes. Though there is one more lord I would like to talk about, and that is receiving a Warriors of Chaos version of the Demon Prince, a customizable mortal tribal champion who must dedicate to one of the Chaos Gods, or all of them, as an undivided character. I may do a video discussing this further, but just imagine all the vast variety of mounts this character could get, like Juggernauts from Khorne and Seekers of Slanesh and Disc of Zinch and a Ratfly. Also the variety of armor and weapons. But this character could literally start anywhere, because, they would make up his lore. I did say one more character, but Sile the Faithless, with his creature Nightmaw, could start in the Path to the East province, with him being the leader of the Dolgan tribes and having lore in Cathay in the Mountains of Morn. In the Path of the East is where the Dolgan tribes, they're around the eastern steppes, around that area. Though he might be a better option for Norska, seeing as he leads tribes, is known for having mammoths in his army, and the fact that Norska doesn't currently have a caster lord. Though there's a new Fimir Mjarg named Mona Mim, who could also be a good caster option. From here, each race should go faster, being that the original 4 were the worst defenders for start positions. And there's just less to talk about. Speaking of Norska, Sile could start in the Path of the East, as I said previously. Other DLC and FLC lords and their positions may include, but are not limited to, Mona Mim, the new Famir Mjarg, in the Empire, or perhaps Cathay, or Norska proper, Bjorg Bearstruck in the Frigid Wastelands to the north, or the south, or Sirtha Ek in Hellspire for the memes. As for the current lords, Throg's position is fine, but with the Demon Prince starting in the same province as Wulfric, the Wanderer can go wander somewhere else. His lore could see him in Nehekara or the Darklands, but it's going to be very crowded here, so his lore also sees him all over the Chaos Wastes. So why not the southern end, which would be a great launch point for the other places I mentioned. For my favorite race, the Beastmen, are in an okay state, but a few key moves could be massively beneficial. Firstly, since the inception of both Khazrak and Morgur, I felt their starting position should be rightfully reversed, seeing as Khazrak is all about fighting Todbringer in the Drakwald, and Morgur is all about trying to burn down Athaloran. Torox is good where he is, even after seeing the official IE map and how cramped the New World is gonna be in Nagaroth. I dropped him in the Doomglades, because, Doom Bowls. And it's close to Western Ulthuan, which is currently empty. Malagor is more malleable with his start position, but if a Vampire Count's Lord comes to the Marshes of Madness, then he should move, and the Blighted Wastes in the Dark Land makes the most sense to me. Almost a lateral move in that he would still be fighting Greenskins in a desert-esque locale, but would also be closer to his loreful position in the Great Forest in Talabakland, and a bit farther from the Beastmen in the Astalia starting position. As far as the Badlands, Southlands, Lustria, and the eastern swath of the world, I hope to see Goros Warhoof and Moloch Slugtongue as future content. Britonia only has one key move. Lewin, Repance, and the Fey Enchantress have great positions already, and though I like confederating Alberic de Bordalou, I never start as him, and I think moving him would make him, much more playable. And I think CA agrees, seeing as the province of Bordalou is no longer on the Immortal Empire's map. Additionally, his patron god is Manan, the god of sea and tides, so I kinda like the idea of him going sailing. Only thing is I could basically find no lore from Warhammer to support any theory, so I looked to our own history at the French colonies, since Warhammer is known to be sort of a dark parody of our own cultures and history. The colonies of French Guiana, Madagascar, and Vietnam are the ones that looked good for Alberic. Madagascar, being the eastern colonies, has better lords for starting there, so I went for Vietnam, also known as Koresh in Warhammer originally. After reviewing the official map, though, it seems French Guiana, or the Piranha Swamps, is the go. Though lorefully, the colony here, Santa Margherita, is a stallion colony, and might become a Dogs of War / Southern Realms position in the future. For the Azrai, please, CA, keep all the lords where they are. Now, Draca, she could move if needed, but even with the 2 new Wooden Elf realms of the Haunted Forest and the jungles of Qian, all other realms that are untaken are too close to where I hope to see other races' lords. Plus, the Wood Elves could get DLC and FLC, and they could go to those aforementioned places, or the Forest of Gloom, or elsewhere. And that is finally it for the Game 1 races. Moving on to Game 2. For the Azure, Tyrion, Alariel, and Altharion are securing Ulthuan right where they ought to be. I don't necessarily love the dual start for Altharion, but it might not change. For Teclis and Elithanar, I think they just need to move to their vortex positions in the Great Turtle Isles and Karen Carr, respectively. For Imric, he could move back to his vortex start, or at least near to. This kind of crams him into an area I'd like to see other lords like Manfred, though. I currently don't like Imric's starting position, particularly because he's a usurper in the Tower of Orag, and I really want a Strigoi Legendary Lord. Besides, there is a slew of potential lords coming to this area, so I think Imric needs to clear out. I believe the eastern colonies to be the ideal position for him at the Tower of the Sun. Because, he's all about that fire, you know what I'm saying? Can launch out to choose the undead or chaos to the south that he burns. For the Druki, I think Malekith, Morathi, and Hellebron are all in the right spots. It's them other 3 that are problematic. I don't hate Lokir's start in Lustria, since there is some lore with him fighting fish people in the Sunken City, but I don't love it either, and I think many people agree. Apparently, through CA's not-so-subtle hint, he's in Cathay. Looking at the map, if he started in the Great Canal or the Broken Lands of Tiandi, he'd lawfully be an Ind, but would also be able to travel on the rivers north, west, south, or east toward the sea lanes toward his homeland of Nagaroth. I'd say just about no one likes Malice's position currently, but I think Rakarth could possibly start there at the Dragon Isles, but I have a certain lizard in mind. Malice, I actually like the dual start because it gives you diplomacy options and a 20k stipend early game. For his actual start, lawfully, he's all up in the Chaos Wastes and is possessed by a demon, so let's start him in the Demonium Hills in the Southern Chaos Wastes, where there are a lot of options for different races to fight. Lastly, Albion is gonna get real crowded when a certain demon lands there. So Rakarth needs to move, and he can move anywhere where he can capture creatures, and who knows how his monster pens might expand in Game 3 with all the new races. Think Stonehorns and from the Ogres, Snow Leopards from Kislev, Chaos Tauruses from the Chaos Dwarves, or Snake Men from Koresh. His options are bound to expand. He can already snag mammoths and different dinos to complete. So to complete Lustria, he can start on the northern west coast, where he will have easy access to sea lanes like Lokir, just on the other side. If all the lords end up here, they will have easy access to the sea lanes, giving the Black Arc mechanic a lot more power. We were just speaking of the Dragon Isles. If memory serves, Malice and the Dragon Isles entered the game together, and ever since it's been a loathsome position. Personally, I've wanted a Lizardmen start position there instead. Cue Nakai the Wanderer, who needs a new home, and starting by Inkrash would be nice. Especially when that race comes, because that landmass wouldn't be so big if they weren't coming, right? Sure, Albion is loreful for Nakai, but we are all pretty much in agreement a certain demon is coming there. The cryptic sentence in the blog about Oxyodal states he is moving to Chaos's front door, which seems like something Lore Master Sotek could figure out from some piece of long-forgotten lore. But to me, I mean, he's already in the northern Chaos Wastes. It's a little close to Dark Elves, though, so I suppose he could move to the south, but that's so close to Lustria that I personally hope not. With Nakai back southways, I want Oxyodal to stay north. The Eternal Lagoon sounds like an Oxyodal starting province. My guess is there. All the other Lizard Lords are in the perfect spot. Tehanawan should also probably move to his Vortex start. Skitter and deep! We move on to the rats, who I would say are largely in the right spot, save Tretch, who we are just about all in agreement should be in Crookback Mountain. A Skaven start in the Darklands? Yes, please. In lore, he does some mission for the Council of 13 in the Darklands, but Crookback Mountain is his rightful home. To give a nod to the Nagaroth lore, just reverse the current Undercity at Crookback Mountain to Hotek's Column. All set. All done. Oh, and we already know your boy Snicketch is moving on up to the east side. Heck yes! As far as Tomb Kings, TK's good. Though I could see Khalida getting her Vortex start. But Labaris is her home, so I kinda hope not. Katep could also move here, but I also think he's fine where he is in Nagaroth exiled. And by here I meant Katep could move to near the Dust Gate or whatever it is, her Khalida's Vortex start. And as far as the pirates, they're all good, except maybe one. I personally just never want to play Salastra's start position. With the sea lanes, it could become a lot more interesting, since she is right by them. But she starts in reach of fighting High Elves and Lizardmen, which Noctilus and Luther already do. I suppose there is Dark Elves too, but I don't get hype from raiding other raiders. Also, with Sea Lane, she could go fight Cathay now, so we'll see. I wouldn't mind if she got a start along the shores of Britonia or Empire, but it's so crowded up there already, I don't see it. I think she'll stay put, and the spot will be, at least, more interesting than before. Finally, moving on to Game 3. For Kislev and Cathay, they should all have their Realms of Chaos starts, except for maybe Boris. Now, I like his current start position and would only want him moved if they were planning to put another DLC FLC Kislev character there who would have some lore fighting closer to the eastern steppes, closer to where the Ungals start ancestrally. While I really love Boris's position, I could see him elsewhere too, as long as he's fighting chaos to protect the motherland. For the Ogre Kingdoms, the Realms of Chaos Ogre Kingdom start positions are not created equal. Greasus is perfect in the Mountains of Morn at the Great Hall of Greasus. The Disciples of the Maw in the Empire? Not so much. Scrag is probably my favorite character a new character in Game 3, and yet I don't want to play him partially just because it's Realm of Chaos, but mostly because I can't worship the Great Maw in all its glory. I'd be just fine with having the only 2 ogre starts for a while be in the homeland of the Mountains of Morn, because I know eventually we will get a Gark Ironskin in the Darklands, or a Golgfag, or Brog Slave Lord, who can start just about anywhere. But yeah, Scrag, put him by the Maw. CA, fix this. For the demons, Yuri is of course in a loreful spot in the Dune Keep, and is comfortable there with Wulfric wandering away. As to the demon star Albion I mentioned earlier, of course I meant Be'lakor, who lawfully will sit in the Citadel of Lead. The only issue I see here is they are very close, and they might put one of them in the Chaos Realms. I kinda hope not. I like them where they are. If you have to move one, move Yuri though, please. For the greater demons, I think Kugath and Skarbrand will sort of swap places due to the names of the provinces in those areas in the official Immortal Empire's map. Just above Kislev, where Kugath was, we now have Bloodfire Falls, the Blood Marshes, Kadatha, and the Skull Road. Very corny. Up near where Skarbrand was, we now have the Noisome Tumor, the Eternal Lagoon, and the Cold Mires, all very nurgly. We already know Nakari is being moved to Althwan, where he can pursue the hated heirs of Anarion. Heck yes. This leaves Kairos to stay put and pressure the Great Bastion. You may notice I've now reviewed all the current lords, but there are 4 champions, as I mentioned earlier at the start of the video. 4 champions of Chaos coming as DLC. So I guessed at who they might be and laid a position for them. For Khorne, we just about all agree it's going to be Valkia the Bloody, Khorne's favorite champion, a Valkyrie from Hell. Her tribe hails from the Eastern Steppes, and she might be our best shot at an Eastern start for Khorne. It would also put further pressure on the Great Bastion. Thing is, in lore, her tribe is referred to as Greenskins, so I could see a Norskin start as well. It's a little confusing, I know, but having a Valkyrie in Norska would be quite thematic. Ultimately, she might start in the Brass Keep, in the new Middle Mountains province. Khorne loves brass. Otherwise, I would want Festus the Leech Lord to go there instead. Nurgle has a lot of fan-favorite awesome characters, yet the community seems to be in agreement that Festus is going to be Nurgle's champion in this DLC. It would feel quite right if Festus found himself within the borders of the Empire, especially next to Nordland. I could also see Gutrot Spume as the champion for Nurgle instead, because that dude fights krakens deep in the ocean with just a knife, and is the only other Nurgle character I could see coming in this pack, being focused on the mortal warriors of chaos rather than the demons of chaos. I think either could start on the southwestern coasts of Norska, and Gutrot could also start in the southern Chaos Wastes, since he's all about the Plague Fleet. He leads the greatest Plague Fleet of Nurgle. Speaking of focusing on Warriors of Chaos, let me tell you why I disagree with the community in overwhelmingly thinking it will be Village the Curseling. I really want Village, but just like Valkia is Khorne's favorite champion, mortal champion, Festus is Nurgle's favorite mortal champion, and Sigvald is Slaanesha's favorite mortal champion, Egrim von Horstmann is Tzeentch's favorite mortal champion. He's also got a novel based on him, a bunch of lore, and he's a fan favorite. Village would be better in a 4-mutant Spawn DLC pack rather than this one, alongside a possibly Scylla Infangrim for Khorne, the Glotkin for Nurgle, and Dekala, the Denied One for Slaanesh. But back to Igrim's start. I could see him in the Brass Keep in the Empire as well. I think one of the Chaos champions is going to start there. Ultimately, he may end up in the Chimera Plateau to be in the Chaos Wastes, but somewhat in reach of the Old World. If it were Village, though, he can go anywhere, really. He's all about... he teleports or something. And as I said before, I would like to see a Slaanesh converted Sigvald for free, so the 4th champion can now be a Warriors of Chaos Undivided champion. So how does it all fit together? I've put it all together on the official map. Feel free to pause now to scrutinize further, screenshot, or what have you. Please, join me in the comments. Tell me what positions you agree with or don't agree with, what speculation I may have missed, or whatever it may be. I will see you guys next week when the starting positions are revealed. Have a good one, everybody.